I've been at a woodworking expo in Raleigh all weekend, surrounded by the smell of cedar and the hum of lathes, when I decided to cut it short. Something felt off. Call a hunch. I got home Sunday afternoon, expecting Lauren to be at the office like she'd said. Another late strategy session. The house was quiet, too quiet until I heard it, a faint thud from her home office upstairs. My stomach twisted. I dropped my bag, crept up the steps, and nudged the door open. Empty. Just her desk, papers scattered, and her phone buzzing like a trapped fly. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. The screen lit up with text from Tyler, her secretary. It's done. What do you want it? My chest tightened. Tyler? The kid barely out of college she'd hired last year? I told myself it was nothing. Work stuff, probably. But then another message popped up. You sure this stays between us? My hand shook as I set the phone down. Lauren had been distant lately, sure, but this? I grabbed a beer from the fridge, sat in the dark, and replayed every late night she'd blamed on deadlines. The expo had been a nice distraction, watching guys carve intricate bowls, swapping tips about sanding techniques. But now my mind was carving something else, doubt. I wasn't the suspicious type. We'd built a life together, 2 kids, a mortgage, her marketing firm that I'd poured my savings into back when it was just a dream. But that thud, those texts, I couldn't unhear or unsee them. I waited for her to get home, rehearsing what I'd say, but when the clock hit midnight and she still wasn't back, I grabbed her phone again. Password was still our anniversary. Cute, right? I scrolled through her messages, expecting boring work chatter. Instead, I found a locked app buried in a folder labeled taxes. My thumb hovered over it. I'm no tech genius, but I've fixed enough jammed saws to know persistence pays off. I cracked it open. What I saw next made the beer slip from my hand and shatter on the floor. The screen glowed with a folder of videos, each thumbnail a blurry mess of shadows. I hesitated, my thumb trembling, but curiosity, or maybe dread, pushed me to tap one. It started with Tyler, sitting in what looked like Lauren's office chair, his face flushed. Then her voice cut through, sharp and commanding. Move closer. Do it right this time. My heart slammed against my ribs. The footage wasn't clear, nothing explicit, just suggestive angles, heavy breathing, and Tyler fumbling with something off-screen. It felt wrong, dirty, but not in the way I'd feared. This wasn't an affair. It was worse. I played another clip, then another, piecing it together. She was directing him, orchestrating some kind of twisted performance. For what? Blackmail? A sick game? I shut it off while rising in my throat. Lauren had always been ambitious, ruthless, even, but this? I paced the kitchen, the broken bottle still leaking across the tiles. I'd spent years trusting her, sanding down my own edges to fit her vision. I'd even built her that cherrywood desk upstairs, a gift for her first big client win. Now it felt like a prop in her lie. But then I stopped pacing. If this was on her phone, what else was she hiding? I grabbed my laptop, logged into our shared cloud, her idea for transparency, and started digging. Nothing obvious at first, just contracts and invoices. But then I found a subfolder labeled T. My gut screamed at me to stop, but I clicked anyway. More files, encrypted, but the titles were enough. Meeting_03, session_07. Dates stretched back months. She'd been at this for a while. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, trying to breathe. The kids were at her mom's for the weekend. Thank God. But what would they think if they knew? I almost called her right then, demanded answers, but something colder took over. I needed proof, not excuses. Her car pulled into the driveway at 2 a.m. I heard her heels click up the stairs, her voice calling my name, all sweet and casual. She had no idea I'd seen it. No idea I was already planning my next move. Lauren breezed into the kitchen, tossing her keys on the counter like nothing was wrong. You're up late, she said, flashing that smile I used to melt for. I nodded, keeping my face blank, the laptop closed beside me. Couldn't sleep, I muttered. She didn't notice the glass shards or the damp floor, too busy pouring herself wine. I watched her, searching for cracks in her act, but she was smooth as ever. Too smooth. How was the expo? She asked, sipping her drink. Fine, I said, my voice tight. How was your night? She shrugged. Same old. Tyler's still a mess with deadlines. Tyler. Hearing his name from her lips twisted the knife deeper. I wanted to slam the phone in her face, make her explain those videos, but I held back. She'd lie. She was too good at it. Instead, I played dumb, letting her ramble about work while my mind raced. Those files on the cloud, they were my leverage now. But I needed more. After she went to bed, I stayed up, cracking into tea. The encryption was weak, her birthday predictable, and what I found turned my stomach again. Emails between her and Tyler, vague but damning. Make sure it's convincing, she wrote. They'll never see it coming, he replied. See what? I dug deeper, cross-referencing dates. One email mentioned a rival firm, Pinnacle, and a big move last quarter. Lauren had lost a contract to them 6 months ago, ranted about it for weeks. Was this her revenge? Using Tyler as some kind of pawn? I rubbed my eyes, exhaustion creeping in, but then I noticed something else. A bank alert on her phone, still buzzing on the counter. I swiped it open. A transfer, $10,000, from our joint account to an unfamiliar name. My hands clenched. That was our kid's college fund, the one we'd sworn not to touch. She'd moved it yesterday. I stared at her sleeping silhouette through the bedroom door, wine glass still in her hand. She thought she'd covered her tracks, but she didn't know I was already 2 steps ahead and about to turn her game upside down. I didn't sleep that night. My mind churned, piecing together Lauren's mess while the house creaked around me. By dawn, I had a plan, or at least the start of one. I called in sick to work, claiming a stomach bug, and waited for her to leave. She kissed my forehead, all doting wife, and said she'd be late again. Big pitch, she lied, grabbing her bag. The second her car peeled out, I went back to the cloud. Those files weren't just leverage, they were a ticking bomb. I downloaded everything. Videos, emails, even a grainy photo of Tyler looking panicked in her office. But the bank transfer nagged at me. I logged into our accounts, hands sweaty on the keys. The $10,000 was gone, funneled to a consulting firm I'd never heard of. Then I saw it, another withdrawal, $5,000, 2 weeks ago. Same recipient. My jaw tightened. That was nearly half our savings, siphoned off while I was sanding table legs in the garage, thinking we were a team. I called the bank, playing the confused husband. Sir, your wife authorized it, the rep said. Joint account, joint access. I thanked him, hung up, and stared at the wall. She wasn't just betraying me, she was robbing our kids. I needed to talk to Tyler. He was the weak link, the one she'd roped into this. I drove to her office, a sleek building downtown she'd brag about leasing. Tyler was at his desk, typing furiously, his tie crooked. Chris, he stammered, eyes wide. What are you doing here? I didn't waste time. I know about the videos, I said, low and steady. His face went white. She made me, he blurted, glancing around like she'd pop out of the walls. Said it was for a client to scare them off. Scare them off? That didn't add up. Pinnacle wasn't a client. It was a rival. But then he dropped the real bomb. It's on the company's server. I messed up, uploaded it there by accident. My pulse spiked. If it was public, her whole firm could collapse. And I could make sure it did. Tyler's confession hit me like a rogue chisel splitting wood, clean, sharp, and irreversible. The videos were on the server. Lauren's dirty little secret wasn't just hers anymore. It was exposed, waiting to be found. I leaned closer, keeping my voice calm. Show me. He hesitated, hands trembling, but I didn't budge. He logged in, pulled up the server, and there it was, a folder labeled Archive Under 30. Dozens of files, timestamps matching the ones on her phone. She doesn't know, he whispered. I was supposed to delete them. I almost laughed. Her perfect plan, undone by a nervous kid who couldn't follow through. But then I thought of the money, our money, and the laughter died. Why'd she do it? I pressed. Tyler swallowed hard. She said Pinnacle was poaching clients. Wanted something to push them back. Push them back? With suggestive footage? It sounded insane, but Lauren's ego was big enough to try it. I told Tyler to keep quiet, left the office, and drove home, my mind spinning. If this leaked, her firm was toast. Lawsuits, ruined reputation, the works. But so was our stability. The kid's future was tied to her income too. I couldn't just burn it all down. Not yet. I needed control. Back in the garage, I ran my hands over a half-finished bookshelf, the wood grain steadying me. I'd always loved how every cut had a purpose, every joint a reason. That's how I'd handle this. Precise, deliberate. I spent the afternoon digging deeper into the server from my laptop, using Tyler's login. He'd scribbled it down in a panic. The files were worse than I thought. Lauren's voice, cold and calculated, directing Tyler through veiled, uncomfortable scenes. Enough to imply plenty, prove nothing concrete, but ruin her anyway. Then I found an email chain, her pitching the project to a shady contact, promising results. She'd paid them with our savings. My blood boiled. She'd gambled everything. Our family, her business. For this, I was done playing defense. When she got home that night, humming like nothing was wrong, I smiled back. She didn't suspect a thing, but she would soon. Lauren collapsed onto the couch that night, kicking off her heels and complaining about a rough day. I nodded, pouring her a glass of wine, playing the doting husband while my mind churned. Tyler's words echoed. She made me. I needed to know how deep this went. After she dozed off, I slipped back to the garage, my sanctuary, and opened the laptop. The server files stared back at me, a digital confession of her insanity. I transferred everything to a USB, my hand steady like I was guiding a planer over oak. Evidence was my weapon now, but I couldn't stop there. I drove to the office at dawn, before anyone arrived, and cornered Tyler again. He was a wreck, bags under his eyes, coffee spilling down his shirt. "What do you want from me?" he croaked. "The truth," I said. "All of it." He slumped, spilling more than coffee this time. Lauren had pitched the footage as a scare tactic for Pinnacle, but it morphed into something darker. "She kept pushing," he said. "Told me to make it convincing. Said she'd fire me if I didn't." My stomach turned. She'd coerced him, twisted his desperation into her tool. But then he dropped a bigger blow. "She's meeting someone tomorrow. The guy who got the money. The $15,000. I pressed him for details, time, place, but he clammed up, terrified. "She'll ruin me," he whispered. I left him there, a jittery mess, and sat in my truck gripping the wheel. Lauren wasn't just reckless. She was unhinged. I'd helped her build that firm, late nights, maxed out credit cards, my name on the loan. Now she was torching it for some petty vendetta. But the kids flashed in my mind. Ellie's braces, Sam's soccer camp. If her company tanked, we'd feel it too. Revenge wasn't enough. I needed a way out. Back home, I watched her sip coffee, oblivious, chatting about a new client. She had no clue I'd talked to Tyler. No clue I was already plotting. Tomorrow, I'd follow her, find out who she'd paid, and then I'd decide how to bury her with her own lies. The next day, I shadowed Lauren like a ghost. She left at noon, claiming a lunch meeting. Her lipstick too bright, her stride too confident. I waited 10 minutes, then tailed her in my truck, keeping 2 cars between us. She pulled into a diner off Route 17. A greasy spoon I'd never seen her step foot in. I parked across the street, watching through the windshield. She slid into a booth with a guy. Mid-40s, slick suit, shifty eyes. My gut screamed trouble. I couldn't hear them, but her hands moved fast, pointing, then slamming the table. He smirked, sliding a folder her way. I snapped a photo with my phone, zooming in. The folder had a logo, Pinnacles. My pulse spiked. Was this a payoff? A double cross? I waited until she stormed out, tires squealing, then slipped inside. The guy was still there, nursing a coffee. I sat 2 booths away, pretending to read the menu. He made a call, voice low. "Yeah, she's in deep. Footage is live." Live? My hands clenched the laminated page. Tyler said it was on the server, but live? I paid for a coffee I didn't drink and bolted to my truck, dialing him. "What do you mean, Liv?" I barked when he picked up. He stammered, I didn't know. She had me sync it to a private link last week. Said it was backup my foot. She'd weaponized it. But then it hit me. If it was live, it wasn't just on the server. It was accessible. I raced home, fired up the laptop, and hunted for the link in the server logs. There it was, buried in metadata, a URL. I clicked it. A grainy feed loaded. Tyler, flustered, following her orders in real time. My throat tightened. This wasn't old footage. It was new, time-stamped this morning. She was still at it. But why Pinnacle? I cross-checked the dates. Every clip lined up with their big client wins. She wasn't scaring them off. She was sabotaging herself. And then I saw it. An admin log. Someone else had accessed it. Her empire was about to blow wide open. The admin log was a gut punch. Someone at the firm had opened that link yesterday. Not Tyler, not Lauren. Someone else. I stared at the screen, the realization sinking in. Her secret wasn't safe anymore. I could leak it myself, watch her crash, but if it was already out, I'd lose the upper hand. I needed to know who knew. I called Tyler again, catching him mid-panic. Who else has access? I demanded. He choked out a name. Megan. IT manager. She's been sniffing around since I screwed up the upload. Megan. Lauren's pit bull, loyal, but nosy. If she'd seen it, this was bigger than me now. I hung up, pacing the garage, the smell of sawdust grounding me. I'd carve a dovetail joint once that split under pressure. Lauren's plan was the same, cracking at the seams. But I couldn't just sit back. I drove to the office, blending into the lunch crowd, and spotted Megan at her desk, typing furiously. I didn't approach, just watched. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then bolted for the conference room. I followed, lingering outside. Through the glass, I saw her with Lauren, gesturing wildly. Lauren's face went pale. She knew. My chest tightened, part relief, part dread. If Megan was confronting her, the dominoes were falling. But then Lauren stormed out, brushing past me without a glance, and barked at Tyler to follow. I ducked into a stairwell, heart pounding. She was scrambling. Good. Back home. I checked the link again. The feed was down. Someone had pulled it. Megan? Lauren? I dug into the server logs. Deleted 12:47 p.m. right after their meeting. But I had the USB. I had copies. She couldn't erase that. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered, cautious. Chris. A woman's voice, tense. It's Megan. We need to talk. My grip tightened. She found me out. About what? I asked, plain dumb. You know what? She snapped. Meet me tonight. Parking lot. 8 p.m. Come alone. She hung up. I leaned against the workbench, staring at a half-finished chair. This wasn't just about Lauren anymore. Megan was in the game, and she was calling the shots. I showed up at the parking lot at 8 sharp, the USB burning a hole in my pocket. Megan leaned against her sedan, arms crossed, her glare cutting through the dusk. You've been busy, she said, no preamble. I shrugged, keeping it cool. Just looking out for my family. She snorted. Family? You mean the mess Lauren dragged you into? My jaw tightened. She knew more than I'd hoped. Spill it, I said. She stepped closer, voice low. I found a feed 2 days ago. Thought it was a glitch till I heard her voice. Then I saw the money trails, your money. I blinked. She traced the $15,000? Why tell me? I asked. Because she's tanking the firm, Megan said. And I'm not going down with her. She handed me a flash drive, her own stash. Bank records, emails, all of it. She's been funneling cash to some guy named Vince. Pinnacle's fixer. Vince, the diner guy. My head spun. Lauren wasn't just sabotaging them. She was paying to escalate it. But then Megan dropped the real kicker. She dipped into the kids' college fund, too. Twice more than you think. I froze. Twice more? I'd seen $15,000 gone, but how much? I rasped. Another $20,000, she said. Last month. 35 grand. Nearly all we'd saved. My hands clenched, nails digging into my palms. I'd built Ellie's crib with my own hands, sanded it till it gleamed. Now Lauren had sold it out from under us. Why not go public? I asked. Megan smirked. I like my job, but I don't like her. You've got the originals, right? I nodded, wary. She was handing me a loaded gun, but why? Use it, she said. She's meeting Vince again tomorrow. Finish her. She drove off, leaving me in the dark, the weight of 2 drives in my hands. I got home, checked our accounts. Empty, just like Megan said. Lauren was upstairs, laughing on the phone, carefree. She thought she'd won, but she didn't know I had proof. Didn't know I'd be at that meeting, too. I grabbed my keys. Tomorrow, I'd end this, one way or another. I barely slept, the drives sitting on my workbench like grenades. Lauren left early, chirping about a breakthrough at work. I waited, then tailed her again, this time to a warehouse on the edge of town. Vince's turf. I parked a block away, watching her stride in, all business. My plan was simple. Record them, catch her red-handed, then decide. Lawyer or leak. I crept closer, phone ready, and crouched behind a stack of crates. Through a cracked window, I heard her voice sharp. "You said it'd work." Vince laughed, low and mean. "It did." Pinnacle spooked. "But your little stunt's live again. Someone's poking around." My breath caught. The feed was back. I checked my phone. Sure enough, the link reloaded, showing Tyler in her office, time-stamped an hour ago. She hadn't stopped. But then Vince said something that flipped it all. "You're lucky I scrubbed the server." Cost me extra. Scrubbed? That's why it went down yesterday. She'd paid him to clean it. More of our money. I started recording, catching every word. Lauren snapped, "Just finish it. I want them gone." Vince slid her a laptop. "Done. But you're exposed. Check your cloud." She froze, fumbling with her phone. I smirked. "Too late, sweetheart." I had it all. But then tires crunched outside. A black SUV rolled up, and two guys stepped out, Pinnacle's logo on their jackets. My stomach dropped. Ambush. I ducked lower, heart hammering. Lauren didn't see them. She was too busy cursing Vince. They barged in, shouting, "Where's the proof?" Vince bolted, leaving her scrambling. I hit stop on the recording, 3 minutes of gold, and slipped back to my truck. She'd been set up. Pinnacle wasn't running scared. They were hunting her. I drove home, hands shaking, and played it back. Her voice, Vince's, the panic, undeniable. I could lawyer up now, secure the kid's future before her firm imploded. But then I thought of Ellie and Sam, how she'd gambled their dreams. Rage took over. I grabbed the USB, uploaded the audio to an anonymous Dropbox, and sent it to Pinnacle's CEO. Let them have her. She'd feel the fallout soon enough. Lauren got home late, her face a mask of exhaustion, but I saw the cracks, twitchy hands, darting eyes. She poured a whiskey, muttering about stressful clients, and I played along, asking bland questions while the audio file sat uploaded, waiting. She had no idea Pinnacle had her confession, no idea I'd pulled the trigger. But then her phone buzzed, over and over. She glanced at it, frowned, and silenced it. "Tyler again," she sighed. "He's clingy." Clingy? I almost laughed. She was still spinning lies, even now. I let her ramble, watching her unravel, until she snapped. "What's with you tonight? You're so quiet." I shrugged. "Just tired." She bought it, heading upstairs, oblivious to the storm I'd unleashed. The next morning, I checked my burner email. Pinnacle CEO had replied, "We've got it. She's done." My chest tightened. Done how? I'd expected lawsuits, not vagueness. But then the news hit. Online headlines screaming about a scandal at Lauren's firm. No details yet, just whispers of leaked evidence. I smirked, sanding a table leg in the garage, the rhythm calming my nerves. She'd built her empire on quicksand, and I just kicked it down. But then she burst in, wild-eyed, clutching her phone. "They know," she hissed. "Pinnacle's threatening to sue." I kept sanding, feigning shock. "Know what?" She glared, pacing. "Someone leaked footage. Tyler's saying it's me. He's lying." My pulse spiked. She was blaming him now? I set the sandpaper down, voice steady. "That's rough. What footage?" She froze, eyes narrowing. "You wouldn't understand." She stormed out, leaving me grinning. Tyler wasn't the leak. I was. But her paranoia was delicious. Hours later, she called me from the office, voice shaking. "They've got audio too. Me and Vince." "How?" I leaned against the workbench, savoring it. "Sounds bad," I said, all innocent. She hung up, and I knew she was scrambling. Pinnacle wasn't just suing, they were dismantling her. But I wasn't done. She'd lied to my face one too many times. Tomorrow, I'd face her head on, let her see the wreckage she'd made, and who'd lit the match. The next day, Lauren's firm hosted a client gala. Black ties, fake smiles, the works. I'd RSVP'd weeks ago, back when I still believed her. Now it was my stage. I dressed sharp, the USB in my pocket, and drove over, the audio file backed up on my phone. She'd never see it coming. The venue buzzed. Caterers, champagne, her employees schmoozing like nothing was wrong. I spotted her across the room, dazzling in red, laughing with a client. My stomach churned. How could she still play the part? But then I saw Megan, lurking near the bar, her eyes locked on Lauren. She nodded at me, subtle but clear. We were aligned. I mingled, waiting for the right moment, until Lauren took the mic for her big speech. "Thank you all for believing in us," she gushed. "We're stronger than ever." Lies. I stepped forward, raising my glass. "To strength," I said, loud enough to turn heads. She smiled, uncertain. "And to trust," I added, pulling my phone out. I hit play. Her voice blared through the Bluetooth speaker I'd synced. "Vince's too. Finish it. I want them gone." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Lauren's face drained of color. "What are you doing?" she hissed, lunging for me. I sidestepped, letting it loop. Clients whispered. Phones came out, recording. She grabbed my arm, pleading, "Chris, stop." I shook her off. "You stop us first," I said, low and cold. The room spun into chaos. People bolting, Megan smirking, Tyler nowhere in sight. But then a client cornered me, furious. "Our contract's tied to her. You screwed us too." My smirk faded. The kids, Ellie's tuition, Sam's camps, her firm's collapse hit them too. I'd miscalculated. Lauren sank into a chair, sobbing, as security ushered me out. Driving home, my hands shook. I'd won, but at what cost? The table leg I'd sanded sat unfinished, a reminder of the life I tried to build. Pinnacle would bury her now, but I'd torched our safety net too. I checked my phone, text from her, begging, "We can fix this." Too late. She'd lost everything, and I just started rebuilding. The fallout hit fast. By morning, Lauren's firm was trending. Hashtags, articles, blurry gala footage everywhere. Clients pulled contracts, stocks tanked, and her name was mud. I scrolled through it all over coffee, the house eerily quiet. She hadn't come home. Good. But then the doorbell rang, 2 cops, stone-faced. "Mr. Dawson," one said, "we need to talk about your wife." My gut dropped. Had she spun this on me? I let them in, bracing myself. "She's at the station," the other said. "Claims you leaked proprietary files. Felony territory." I force a laugh. "She's desperate. Check her cloud, her voice, her mess." They exchanged looks, jotting notes. "We'll need evidence," the first said. I handed over the USB, calm as I could manage. "It's all there." They left, promising to follow up, and I exhaled. She tried to flip it, but I'd cover my tracks. Hours later, Megan called. "She's done," she said. "Board fired her this morning. Pinnacle's suing for damages." I nodded, staring at cedar plank I'd been shaping. "And the kids?" I asked. "Firm's bankrupt," she said. "No payouts." My throat tightened. I'd wanted her to pay, not them. That night, Lauren showed up disheveled, banging on the door. "Let me in," she yelled. I opened it, arms crossed. She stumbled inside, reeking of wine. "You ruined me," she slurred. "You and Tyler." I stepped closer, voice low. "You ruined us. The money, Ellie's, Sam's, you spent it on Vince." Her eyes widened, then narrowed. "I was protecting us," she spat. "Pinnacle was stealing everything." I shook my head. "You stole it first." She lunged at me, clawing, but I grabbed her wrists, pushing her back. "Get out," I said. She froze, then crumpled, sobbing. "I've got nothing left." I didn't flinch. "You chose that." She staggered out, and I locked the door, my hands trembling. The cops called later. Her story didn't hold. The USB cleared me, but the victory felt hollow. I'd carve her out of our lives, but the kids would feel the splinters. I needed to fix that, somehow. Weeks passed, and the dust settled, sort of. Lauren moved to her mom's. The firm liquidated, and Pinnacle's lawsuit left her drowning in legal fees. I got the house, the kids, and a stack of bills. The college fund was gone, but I sold her car, some flashy thing she'd bought last year, and scraped enough to cover Ellie's next semester. Sam's camp was toast, though. He didn't complain, just kicked his soccer ball harder. I watched him from the garage, sanding a new project, a rocking chair this time. The rhythm soothed me, each stroke shaving away the chaos she'd left. But then she called, voice small. "Chris, I need help. They're garnishing everything." I gripped the phone. "Not my problem." She sniffled. I'm sorry. I messed up. Sorry? After the lies, the money, Tyler? I hung up, my chest tight. She'd beg at the gala, too. Didn't move me then, wouldn't now. Megan texted later. She's toast. Vince flipped, testified against her. I smirked. Her own pawn had checkmated her. But the kids kept me up nights. Ellie asked why Mom wasn't around. I dodged, saying she was busy. Sam just shrugged, but I saw the hurt. I'd won sure, but they'd lost too. I threw myself into work, day job, plus custom furniture gigs. A buddy bought the chair for his wife, cash up front. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Then Lauren showed up again, unannounced, sober this time. I'm selling the lake house, she said, eyes red. Can we split it? I laughed, bitter. You mean the one you leveraged for Vince? It's gone, bank took it. She blinked, stunned. But the kids don't, I cut in. You don't get to use them now. She stood there, deflated, then left without a fight. First time she didn't argue. I watched her go, feeling nothing. Not rage, not pity, just empty. Back in the garage, I started a new piece, a shelf for Sam's trophies. Each cut was deliberate, like I was rebuilding us, board by board. She'd lost it all, business, family, pride. I'd lost plenty too, but I still had them. And that was enough. Months later, life found a new groove. I got a promotion, more hours, better pay, and the furniture side gig took off. A local shop commissioned 3 tables, cherrywood, my favorite. The kids adjusted. Ellie aced her finals, Sam made varsity. We didn't talk about Lauren much. She'd faded into headlines and court dates, a ghost of who she'd been. I heard she took a job waitressing, scraping by. Fitting, I guess, she'd served herself up to this. I finished Sam's shelf one Saturday, mounting it in his room. He grinned, arranging his medals, and I felt a weight lift. Not gone, just lighter. The garage became my haven again, tools lined up, projects stacking. I'd always loved how it bent to patience, not force. Lauren never got that. She'd pushed too hard, broken everything. But then she texted, out of the blue, "Can I see them?" I stared at it, thumb hovering. Ellie overheard, peeking in. "Is that Mom?" I nodded. She shrugged. "Tell her I'm busy." Sam echoed it. "Yeah, me too." I typed back, "They're good. Leave it alone." She didn't reply. Maybe she finally got it. Her choices had carved her out of us. That night, I sat on the porch with a beer, the rocking chair creaking under me. The stars were sharp, the air cool. I thought about the expo, that weekend that started it all. I'd gone to learn dovetails, came back to a shattered life. But I'd rebuilt it, stronger joints, cleaner lines. Pinnacle dropped the suit after Vince's testimony. Her firm's collapse was punishment enough. Tyler vanished. New job, new city, I heard. Megan stayed on, running IT for the firm's skeleton crew. Me? I kept going. The kids laughed more now, and I slept through the night. Lauren's empire was ash, her lies exposed. Her world shrunk to a studio apartment and a tip jar. I turned her chaos into my control. Not perfect, but mine. Thank you for tuning into this story. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world you're watching from right now. Let us know in the comments.